my point is the eremos, or the lonely place, was a regular part of Jesus' life rhythm. Like read gospel after gospel, story after story. On a regular basis, he would sneak away to the top of a mountain in the middle of the night, or to a park outside Jerusalem, or a closet in the back of somebody's house, just to gather himself to God and to pray. Now, this practice based on the life and teachings of Jesus has come to be called silence and solitude. Here's a working definition of silence and solitude to frame the next couple of weeks of teaching. It's intentional time in the quiet to be alone with ourselves and God. Again, intentional time in the quiet to be alone with ourselves and God. And a word on each. Silence is pretty self-explanatory, but there are two dimensions to silence, external and internal. External silence is when you go somewhere with no noise, or as little noise as possible. No music in your headphones, no TV in the background, no roommate watching Netflix down the hall. It's when you're out in nature, or you're up early in the morning, or in the quiet of your room, or whatever, and it is quiet. And quiet, all by itself, just that alone, is a kind of spiritual discipline. You don't have to do anything. You don't have to read or pray or fast. Just quiet, all by itself, is a kind of spiritual discipline and a balm for emotional healing. Just a couple of days ago on my Sabbath, it's just what a great week with all of the snow. And I was sitting in my home office and I was reading, and all of a sudden, just a quiet started to come over the house. I think my children were napping, clearly something, or they were gone or out of the house, something, sleeping or gone. And just a quiet start, and I pushed the pause button, and I just sat there in the quiet for a minute, 2, 5, and I felt my soul just come alive. You ever have that experience? This morning, I was on a run in Forest Park, and it was just magical and snow everywhere. And I get into the park, and I reach down to grab my phone and my headphones, because normally when I run, that's my podcast time. And I reach down to put it in. I just have this sense no, just let it be what it is. Run in the quiet. And I just did it for a minute, 5, 10, and oh my gosh, just that sense, that easy, that simple, of the quiet, it does something to your soul. There's something about just not talking for a while. As a general rule, the more we talk, the more we sin. Would you agree with that? Or in the language of the Hebrew wisdom literature that we call Proverbs, in the multitude of words, sin is not lacking. If you don't believe me, ask your roommate or your spouse or whatever. I think that we way overvalue talking in the modern world. And I love it. I love to podcast and TED Talk and listen. I'm a learner, reader. I love just information. But I think that we way undervalue silence. I get asked on a regular basis to travel somewhere and talk. I've yet to be asked to travel somewhere and just shut up and stand there and listen. It's yet to happen. I think that's because silence, as healing as it and as life-giving as it is really hard. What does it say about us that we always have to have music on, or TV in the background when we're at home, or folding laundry and a show on, or NPR on during our morning commute, or headphones in on the plane, or podcasts going on the run, or nonstop noise? It's almost like we're running from something. And that's because there's the external noise, and all you have to do to turn that off is put in noise-canceling headphones, or go to Forest Park, or go to the beach alone for a day. But then there's also an internal noise, the mental clutter, the mind that just won't slow down, the fantasy, the revenge, the hate, the bitterness, the worry, the what if, the squirrel, all of that we live with. It's not just the sound system or the noise of the city or traffic or my apartment is loud or whatever. There's the internal noise. Silence is when we quiet both. So silence and then solitude. And the two, go together. As I said, silence all by itself is a kind of spiritual discipline, but 9 times out of 10, the two are kind of lumped together. And I think that's because without silence, there really can be no solitude. Now, solitude, to clarify, is not the same thing as loneliness or isolation. Richard Foster, in Celebration of Discipline, writes, "Loneliness is inner emptiness. Solitude is inner fulfillment." I think it's a great play right there. Wayne Cadero has a great little book on burnout where he writes this: there is a difference, I think a world of difference, between isolation and solitude. They may contain similar characteristics, but in reality they are worlds apart. Solitude is a chosen separation for refining your soul. Isolation is what you crave when you neglect the first. How good is that? In silence and solitude, we decompress from the noise and traffic and chaos and busyness and activity and nonstop stimulation of modern society. In silence and solitude, we slow down long enough to feel all of the emotions that we've been running away from and have been trying to catch up. In silence and solitude, we face the good and the bad and the ugly in our own heart. We face our desire, our hunger, and our thirst for God. And we face our lack of desire for God, and our insecurity, and our idolatry, and our fantasy, and everything that lies under the surface of our life, that nasty, weird motivation, the addiction that we've used just to make it through our work week. All of it is exposed, but in a safe place with God. In solitude, we hear the voice of God cut through that wall of sound, that cacophony of all the other voices: mom's voice, dad's voice, my boss's voice, that blog's voice, social media's voice, the world's voice, my news app's voice, all the enemy's voice, all the other voices. We cut through and start to realize this is true and this is a lie. And we get the right perspective on our life with God. In silence and solitude, we come to a new place of freedom. Our successes and our failures slowly start to lose their power over us, as does the tyranny of the approval or disapproval of other people. In silence and solitude, we come home to ourselves and, above all, to God.